So the film begins and we see Nick and his young son at a quiet fuel station. While Nick was busy getting fuel, his son had gone inside the shop to get some coffee. Suddenly, a group of dangerous gangsters arrive and start shooting inside the small store. Among these violent gangsters, one young boy seems to be quite nervous. It turns out that this was his first time coming with these people to kill someone. His companion tells him, "What are you thinking? Kill him." Nick's son says, "No, please don't kill me." But the young boy's aggressive companions put so much intense pressure on him that he shoots Nick's son, tragically killing him right there on the spot. Nick tried to catch his son's killer, and he actually managed to catch him. He wanted to have him arrested, but the man kept slipping out of his grasp. Nevertheless, Nick manages to remove the mask from the boy's face and sees his features. Before Nick can say a single word, the boy frees himself and desperately tries to escape from the area. But by then, his accomplices had already left him behind. Nick no longer had enough time to chase after this boy. He wanted to take his son to the hospital one more time. But even after reaching the hospital, nothing changed. His son had died. The death of his son had now completely broken him. Here it is revealed that the police had already caught the killer, and they had called Nick to the police station to verify the killer's identity. Nick instantly recognizes the face of the killer who had brutally murdered his son. Now, in just a few days, his trial was about to begin. Nick hoped that the person who killed his son would receive the harshest possible punishment, but when he meets the lawyer, he finds out that the killer won't get more than 3 years in prison because he didn't kill Nick's son intentionally. He had killed him under pressure from others, and in such situations, the maximum punishment is 3 years in jail or just a fine of a few $1,000s. But was the value of Nick's son's life really so little? He asks the lawyer, "How is this possible? I saw it myself. He killed my son. I am a witness." But the lawyer tells him that, unfortunately, that boy had no personal enmity with your son. The criminal gang he joined had a strict rule that in order to become a full member, every young boy was required to kill someone first, and on that very night, they killed your son. The lawyer tells him, "If you want, you can fight this case for even 10 years. You can try your best to get him sentenced to death, but I am absolutely certain that he will never get the death penalty." The lawyer then explains to him that it's best if you tell the judge everything exactly as you told us, so that the judge feels some sympathy for this death and gives the killer the maximum possible punishment. But after hearing this, Nick became extremely sad. The punishment for killing his son couldn't possibly be just 3 years. Nick gets up and leaves from there, and now they meet again on the day of the trial. This time, the killer is also brought before Nick, and when the judge asks Nick if this is the killer, he surprisingly answers no. And from here, we realize that now a different game was playing out in his mind. Now, even the killer was smiling at him in such a way as if he had won something big. The judge now decides to release the killer, and all his fellow gang members come to pick him up. Since he had done something very brave against his own gang members, they were taking him to throw a party for him, and Nick, standing at a distance, was watching all of them very closely. It appeared as if he was making some sort of secret plan against them in his mind. After they had moved a little bit further, Nick started following them, and so that the gang leader brought that boy, the killer, to a girl's house, gave him some money to party there, and then he finally left. After seeing this scene, Nick quickly went home and started searching for a weapon. Then, after grabbing a decent weapon, he returned to the same apartment, and as soon as he entered, attacked his son's killer. The boy tried his absolute best to save himself, but he was unable to escape, and Nick stabbed him in the stomach and killed him. When the boy died, that's when Nick realized that he had committed a horrific and irreversible crime. The very crime for which he wanted justice for his son, he had now committed himself. He panicked and quickly left the entire place behind him. To destroy all the evidence against himself, he threw the knife he used to kill the killer into the river. Now, when a panicked Nick came home, seeing him in such a state, his wife and his other son also became very worried. But Nick didn't say a single word to them about the fact that he had just committed a murder. He quietly goes to the bathroom and stands under the shower sobbing uncontrollably. He wasn't sad because his son had died. Today, he was sad because the human inside him had also died in order to take revenge for his son. The next day, we are shown Billy, who is the leader of that gang. When he finds out that the killer has died, he is completely shocked, and now he is extremely angry over his companion's death. He looks at today's newspaper, where there is a huge article about Nick's son's death, even though one of his own gang members had also died. In anger, he tells everyone, "This is the justice of the world. When the world treats us like this, we will do the same to the world. When the son of a big businessman or a high-ranking officer dies, entire articles are written about it, but when one of us dies, it's just a single line, "A gangster has died." Whatever happens now, he is resolved to avenge his companion's death. Meanwhile, on the other side, the police also received news of the gangster's death, and they go to inform Nick that his son's killer has been killed. The police believe that this act must have been carried out by a rival gang, but they don't know that Nick himself is responsible for this. Here, Nick's companion, who was sitting beside him, says, "At last, your son has received a justice." Just hearing this, Nick felt that what he had done was right. Until yesterday, he was burdened with guilt. The guilt of having killed a man was now gone from deep within his heart. Here, we see gangster Billy again, who is now determined to find out who killed his associate. He goes to the same girl whom the killer had visited that day and asks her, "Have you seen this man?" The girl tells him that she saw that man near her apartment on that very day. Hearing this, Billy was convinced that the one who killed his associate was none other than Nick. That's why these people started following Nick now. After walking a short distance, Nick also started to feel that someone was following him. Before the man, that is, the gangster, could pull out his gun and shoot Nick, Nick hit his suitcase against the gangster's gun hand, knocking the gun away, and tried to escape to save his own life. But all of them started chasing after him. While running, these gangsters even started shooting at him. But fortunately, not a single bullet hit Nick. To save his life, he dropped all his belongings and ran into a hotel. But the gangsters followed him there as well. He exited through the kitchen and went into the garage. He started setting off the security alarms of all the cars there, hoping that either the police or a guard would come to save him, but no one showed up there. Now he ran to the roof car porch and one man was still after him, just about to kill him. But to save himself, Nick grabbed him and slammed him repeatedly against a car door, beating him badly. During all this fighting, the car suddenly started moving on its own, and before it could fall down, Nick managed to get out of it. The other man, whom Nick had been beating inside the car, was killed when the car crashed. Taking advantage of the situation, Nick quickly grabbed another car and escaped from there, managing to survive despite being attacked by several people. He had just escaped one problem when another one appeared before him. His wife told him that their son had not returned from school by evening. He became extremely worried, but then he thought that his other son must have gone to the place where his first brother had died. And his suspicion turned out to be correct. His son was there, lost in memories of his brother, and didn't want to leave that place. In his anger, Nick even yelled at him. Nick's son felt that Nick was getting angry for no reason, but Nick fully understood that he was saving his son from a life-threatening situation. On the other hand, we are shown those ruthless criminals whom Nick had attacked with his suitcase in order to protect himself. Inside this suitcase was all of Nick's personal information, which has now fallen into the hands of those gangsters. Nick's family picture is also in this suitcase. Looking at that picture, their expressions and attitude made it clear that, to defeat Nick and take their revenge, they would also target Nick's family. Now that gangster Billy sends one of his men to Nick's office. Despite being intercepted and detained several times by security, he manages to meet Nick and successfully delivers the suitcase, but all the contents inside were now completely gone. But inside was a family photo, with a cross marked over each person's face, and he openly threatened Nick, saying that messing with Billy was a grave and costly error. Now you'll see what happens to you. Because this gangster managed to get inside and threaten Nick, many people in the office were now scared. This time, there was also a number written on the back of the picture. When Nick calls that number, he finds out that it actually belongs to Billy. Billy threatens him again, saying he'll kill his entire family, but Nick tells him that if he even thinks of harming his family, he'll do to Billy what he did to his partner. In response, Billy tells him that the person he killed wasn't just his partner, he was his real brother. As soon as Nick heard this, he became even more terrified. He immediately hung up the phone, grabbed his personal phone and left from there. He now understood that this fight wasn't just between the gangsters and Nick. Now this fight had become one between Billy and Nick. Billy was the one whose brother had been killed, and Nick was the one who, after his own son was killed, took revenge by killing Billy's brother. But Billy's revenge was still pending. At this time, Nick had already called his wife. He nervously tells his wife that their lives are in danger. Stay at home, don't let anyone in, don't go outside yourself, and take special care of our son. I'll be home soon. As he is about to reach home, a police officer arrives right behind him. This was the same officer who had previously been investigating the murder of Nick's son. This time she says to Nick, Why don't you just admit that you did all of it, and if you think you can hide it from us, that's not the case. She was talking about the murder of that boy, the one Nick had committed. But Nick was a bit hesitant to confess everything in front of his wife, and here, his wife was looking at him with concern. The officer says to Nick, "If you don't cooperate with us, you'll be responsible for the consequences yourself. You think you only killed one boy, the one who was your brother's murderer. But you're wrong, he was a high-ranking gangster. And by killing him, you've ignited a gang war." Saying this, the officer leaves, and a worried Nick follows her and admits that he was the one who killed that boy. Now, he doesn't want his family to suffer like his older son did. Upon hearing this news, the officer promises him, "We will help you as much as we possibly can. Tonight, 2 of our officers will be at your home to protect your family, but you'll also have to be very careful yourself." Now, even Nick's wife had learned the whole truth. Nick completely breaks down in front of her, but instead of blaming him, his wife supports him and says, "You haven't done anything wrong, NC. You did all this simply to avenge your daughter." His wife, though with difficulty, finally manages to get him to sleep, but in the middle of the night, they are awakened by the sound of a police car horn. Nick wakes up in a panic. He thinks that if the police officers are honking their car horn, there must be some danger. When he looked out the window, he realized that it wasn't the police honking the horn, but the gangsters themselves, and forget about danger, an entire catastrophe had arrived. Those gangsters had already killed the police officers, and now, to kill them, they even broke into their house. As soon as one man enters, he tries to attack Nick with his shotgun, but Nick manages to dodge his bullets, and very carefully, he attacks him from behind and snatches his gun. Then, using his gun, he first injures him and then his accomplice. Before he can even get a grip on himself, he hears the screams of his son and his wife. When Nick ran over to save them, he saw that Billy's men had already found both of them and were sitting with them. As soon as Nick arrives, Billy doesn't show even a bit of mercy and shoots his son and wife right in front of his eyes. He had waited for Billy to arrive so that Billy could witness their deaths and feel the pain that Billy himself had experienced when his brother died. Before Nick even has a chance to react, Billy shoots him as well and quickly flees the scene. They thought these people were dead, but through a miraculous stroke of luck, Billy somehow manages to survive. Now, when he regained consciousness, he was in the hospital and in deep shock. He felt as if his entire family had slipped away from him. But then, he is told that his son is still alive, but in a coma. Seeing his son in such a condition, Nick breaks down even more and blames himself for his son's state. He says to his son, "Please forgive me. If I had listened to the lawyer that day, at least my son's killer would be in jail and my other son would be with me." Now he returns to his room and decides that no matter what, he will kill Billy. Because if he doesn't kill Billy, Billy is not going to sit quietly. He will definitely seek revenge. He will surely come after Nick and Nick's son. He was still lost in these thoughts when the same officer arrived, the one who had been surprised to see him alive. She tells him, "God has saved your life. Be grateful, and please stop this war you've started, because in war, it's not guaranteed that everyone will survive every time. I know you're okay, but if you keep continuing this war, you won't have anything left." Nick doesn't pay any attention to her words now and leaves from there without taking the discharge form. His condition was still very bad. He saw that he had suffered a serious injury to his head as well, but he wasn't concerned about any of his own pain. Now, all he cared about was his revenge and saving his son. After coming home, the first thing he did was change his appearance. He had now started training himself for a big fight. Despite the pain, he was working very hard on his training, and at the same time he was making a plan to kill Billy and preparing to carry out that plan. Now he withdrew all the money he had left in the bank. Through his friend, he gathered information about Billy, where he usually went and hung out. He eventually found out about a local bar, and now he went there to investigate further. When he asked a man standing at the bar about Billy and his notorious gang, they started making fun of Nick. He got quite angry at being mocked, and instead of just responding verbally, he started a massive fight right there. Because of this, everyone got scared. Nick's fighting skills had become so good that no one could stand up to him anymore. Now he heads over to an illegal weapons shop. He picks up some high-quality weapons from there, and even pays the man a generous amount of extra money for them. During their conversation, the man asks him what his specific intentions are with these weapons. Nick tells him all about his fights, and as soon as he turns around with the guns, he hears the sound of the man loading his own gun. At this point, Nick was confused. He turned around and looked at the dealer. The dealer was laughing at this moment. He revealed that the person Nick was looking for, Billy, was actually his son, and the one Nick had killed was also his son. Hearing this, Nick was startled for a moment. He thought that now this man would take his revenge on him. But the man said, "What's done is done. I won't do anything to you this time, nor will I tell you not to kill Billy because Billy isn't really my own son. But yes, if you make the mistake of asking me for his whereabouts, then I will kill you." Now Nick had left from there, taking all the weapons with him. He practiced using these weapons for several days. He was heading into a gang war. He couldn't afford even the slightest mistake. When he felt his training was complete, he tracked down Billy's friend and arrived at his apartment. As soon as Billy's friend saw Nick alive, he was confused because he wasn't the one who had shot Nick. He asked him, "How did you survive?" Nick says, "That's not the question. The question is, where is Billy at this time?" The man was terrified, seeing Nick standing right there in front of him with a loaded gun. That is why he quickly blurted out that Billy is hiding in an old mental hospital. Hearing this, Nick tells him, "Call your friend immediately and tell him that I am still alive and I am coming to kill him." Frightened, the man quickly dials the phone and starts telling Billy about Nick. But Billy wasn't scared at all. He says, "Let him come, I'll deal with him myself." At this time he was mistakenly thinking that Nick was still the same decent businessman as before. He was unaware that an incident had changed Nick so much that he had become just as cold-blooded and ruthless as them. Now, to shatter this belief, Nick shoots Billy's friend right there, and the sound of the gunshot is heard by Billy on the other end of the phone. Seeing Nick's determination, he realized that now he himself was in danger too. That is why he is planning to leave that place and has started packing his personal belongings. But before he can get away from there, a car stops there, but Nick wasn't in it. It was his very own dad who tells him, "You can't run away from here, you have to stay here and confront him directly, because he has an arsenal of weapons worth millions of dollars. If he escapes from here, I won't be able to get those weapons back. You will stay right here, confront him, and then kill him so that I can finally recover those weapons." Billy was already extremely angry and scared. On top of that, his dad's insatiable greed made him even more incredibly furious, and he ultimately ends up murdering his own dad right there. Because ever since childhood, his dad had used Billy for his own benefit, and it was because of this attitude that Billy became a gangster. Anyway, while he was thinking about all this, he suddenly hears the sound of a terrible accident outside. It turns out that it was Nick who had made an entrance. He crashed his car into the truck belonging to Billy's associates. Because of this, one of Billy's men was killed right there. After that, he gathered up all his weapons and stepped cautiously into the mental hospital. Wherever he saw Billy's men now, he was opening fire on them without a second thought. With these weapons, his fight became much easier. He could hardly even remember exactly how many men he had killed. It wasn't as if Billy's men weren't fighting back against him. They were firing at him, and Nick was taking cover to avoid them. He even fought and killed a couple of gangsters who attacked him from behind. Because today, luck was on his side. Finally, he was now face to face with Billy. As soon as he sees Billy, he fires at him, and Billy fires back at him. But many of Billy's shots missed their mark. At this point, it seems like the fight is over, and Nick has killed Billy. But just then, another one of Billy's men fires a shot at Nick from behind, hitting him directly in the neck. Nick writhes in excruciating pain and goes to sit on a nearby bench. Billy fires at him several times from a distance to kill him, but not a single shot hits the mark. Now, dragging himself slowly, he comes and sits right next to Nick and says to him, "Look at what I've turned you into. You know, to turn a person into a hardened gangster, all it takes is killing another person, just like my brother killed your son, and then you killed my brother, and today, who knows how many people you've killed." Nick gets extremely angry at this, and he pulls out another gun he had hidden with him, and asks Billy, "Are you ready to die?" Seeing this gun, tears come to Billy's eyes at that moment, but he doesn't say anything, and Nick finally kills Billy. Then, taking Billy's car, he leaves from there and returns home. He was in a lot of pain. He had lost a lot of blood. It really didn't seem like he would survive. He went and sat down on the sofa and started looking at the pictures of his family in front of him. He started remembering all those precious moments he had spent so happily with his family. In his quest for revenge, he had lost his entire family dearly. That's why even after winning, he wasn't happy today. His eyes slowly started to close. Before he could die completely, the very same police officer who had been managing this whole case arrived at the scene. She tells Nick that his son has regained consciousness. Hearing this, a smile appears on Nick's face because everything he had done today was for his son. He knew That if his son managed to survive and he didn't kill Billy, then Billy would certainly kill his son. But at least today, by sacrificing his own life and winning that entire fight, he not only saved his son's life, but also saved the lives of many others who would have been killed by those evil gangsters. At this point, the feature film ends, showing him smiling at the camera. It ends without showing whether Nick ever truly survived or died.